Hey folks, welcome back to a special episode of Biomassed. We're kind of gathering here together to give you a quick roundup, our thoughts on E3 2018. We're going to keep this really tight, really clean, so we're going to go really fast, just like last time. So, quick introductions. I'm Pokey Draven. Next up is Bait.
Hey, what up everybody? My name is Bait.
And Jason.
Hey folks, this is Jason. You can also call me the Motown Marauder, as I'm now newly ensconced in the greater metroplex of Detroit. As I just noted to my co-host, I am patiently waiting to see RoboCop roll down the street, hop out, and tell somebody, dead or alive, you're coming with me, and then smoke some mugger at a 7-Eleven. Totally waiting on it.
It's going to happen. All right,
probably not where I live, in all fairness, but there's a chance. I'm just saying there's a chance.
There's a chance. All right, Livvy, you're up.
You can always dream. Hi, I'm Livvy, blogger, gamer, etc.
All right, good stuff. So E3 this year was pretty awesome. Had some really good stuff. So kind of for this format, what we're going to do is we kind of picked out like 5 big names: Microsoft, Sony, Ubisoft, Bethesda, and Nintendo. And we're just going to kind of go rapid fire down the list, kind of give our thoughts and talk a little bit about some of the major titles they discussed. So let's get started off the top of the list with Microsoft. So let's start with the big one, Cyberpunk 2077. The hype was real. Oh yeah. No, it looked awesome. It wasn't like actual gameplay, but I hear from the people that were on the show floor and got to play like the demo, they were all like mind blown on how good it was. Like they were just freaking out.
That was different and better than what I thought it was going to be. Now, I'm a massive fan of CD Projekt Red, and like of Witcher fame, obviously, but this thing looks very legit. And it is a big step away in gameplay from how Witcher was gonna, how that basically plays. This is first person, and it looks gorgeous, like absolutely gorgeous. So if they can bring like Witcher level story and depth to that kind of a game world, Shazam!
Yep, and they're totally gonna do it. I mean, CD Projekt Red they don't gimp on their stories at all. So I don't think I'm too worried about this game.
The one thing that I would kind of offer that struck me with CD Projekt Red, that's actually a surprisingly small studio.
Mm-hmm.
But they're laser, quote unquote laser focused. They really only work on like one thing at a time. Like they're not like a lot of these other like kind of quote unquote elite developers that have like, maybe multiple big AAA titles that are in some different stage of development. These guys don't really do that. They are very, very focused, and it's kind of an all hands on deck to make their one product that they're putting out. So I like I said, I expected to see a Witcher with a cyberpunk skin on it. I'm not gonna lie to you, that's kind of what I was on board for that.
Mm-hmm. But
the tone looks way different than I thought it was. It was a lot brighter looking. It was almost more Minority Report with a little bit of Blade Runner, not so much just Blade Runner and like dank darkness type stuff. But it was really good. Looked good.
Yeah, I mean, I was expecting Blade Runner pretty much, because I mean the trailer we got years ago, it was just kind of in a wet, dirty street. Everything's blue. It's probably going to rain soon, so I figured the whole game was going to be like that. And then you start off the new trailer on like the subway, and then it goes out into the sun. And it's like, whoa, like this is not at all what I was expecting, but I like it because you still kind of got some of that like dark nightlife, but you also got the other side of Cyberpunk, which is you don't normally see. But no, it looks awesome, and everyone that was there is like, holy shit, like it's amazing. So I'm stoked. What did you guys think about the shift to first person? That's causing a bit of controversy. Do you care about that, or?
Yeah, that is the biggest thing I thought was different because I was not expecting it. And if they can pull it off, I'm on board. Now that being said, did you guys see the car driving sequence?
Yes, I did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. That I'm not gonna lie to you. That kind of threw me off. You drive a car in first person view, and I can't think of another game that does that off the top of my head. Like you're like you literally see yourself manipulating the car first person, and you're controlling it from your controller or whatever. But that was kind of unusual. I kind of like it, because it's, I mean, if you think about it, it's kind of Elder Scrolls-y. it's kind of, I mean, this is not new turf for this kind of game. What I wonder though is what are the combat mechanics like? Is it is it like Deus Ex style combat, which I would be okay for. I'd be okay with that. That's not like Destiny, Call of Duty level slick FPS shooter. But for a game like this that's got some heavy RPG stuff, I would be on board with somewhere around there.
Yeah, I don't know if CD Projekt Red has brought in. I don't know if they've made any new hires as to bring in people that maybe have had more experience working with quote unquote actual FPS. But I mean, I don't think anybody's expecting the gunplay to be like super great. Like certainly not on the Call of Duty level scale. As far as that goes, I mean, these guys they make third person RPGs with swords, with the Witcher and whatnot. So I'm not expecting anything like amazing out of the gunplay, but I am hopeful.
Yeah, I think if I can get somewhere around Mass Effect level combat,
yeah,
I would be okay with that. And let's be realistic, that game is not about that. That's not about the combat, the minute, or really the second combat experience. It's about the story, and you use combat as a way to drive the story. And if they take that approach, like I said, I'm on board.
Yeah, that does kind of worry me though about you talked about the driving sequence just a second ago. I hate driving cars in first person mode, whether it's a racing game or it's Grand Theft Auto or something else, man. I hope that I have the option to be able to go into like a third person mode for the driving, because
you will actually.
Yes.
This came up in an interview, and they're like the one time where you can go into third person is for driving sequences, because they know that can be really hard for some people, and just with the way controls work. So if you don't like first person driving, you can do it in third person, but you do have the option going first if you want.
But only on those, right? It's not throughout the. I can't go into
just vehicle portion. I think that as they said, they're pretty committed to the first person because they felt that it brought the experience into a more intimate feel.
Mhm.
My guess is that in a world where there's hacking and all kinds of stuff, people can like screw with your eyes and that sort of thing. Keeping it in first person does allow for some cool gameplay elements. If you've watched Ghost in the Shell, you kind of know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my guess they're going, because I know that there's like a hacking class you can do. So that'd be kind of interesting to see, but that's kind of what I'm expecting.
No, well, you bring up a great point, because if you in any of the cyberpunk sort of genre stuff, you're like how you absorb the environment is often a significant part of a character, or like how somebody manipulates a situation. Like if you have cybered eyes and then sudden you got low light vision, how do you do that in third person? You just like turn the whole screen green. That kind of sucks. But the first person view, like you said, you would have a HUD. Like you would be able to see, your relative health status, like maybe the ammo you have, which, in all fairness, that's one of the things that you get in these kind of worlds when you upgrade your eyes, so to speak. So, like I said, I'm on board for that, for the first person view. I just want to see what they do with it.
Yeah, it should be good. And unfortunately, we're not getting a release date on this one. But like I said, the people who were playing the demo said it was great. So eagerly waiting for more information. There's still
any bet on release date though. Like, what do you guys think?
Not this year. I'm guessing probably mid to late 2019.
Yeah,
it's going to be a while.
I was thinking it would be like somewhere third quarter 2019.
Yeah, I'd buy that, because I mean, if they're not showing like actual gameplay in like the public setting, that means it's probably still quite a ways off. So I'd say late next year.
Wait, they have it on the show floor for people to privately play?
Yeah, I think there was like a 50-minute gameplay thing.
It was the one demo level, basically.
Oh.
Yeah, it was all NDA. They couldn't really talk about it, but people were sharing their overall thoughts, and they were all very excited and happy about it. So pretty much universally, I don't think anyone really had anything bad to say about it, so that's good to hear. So that one's pretty good. So let's move on to some of the smaller ones here. So Forza Horizon 4. Any racing game fans out there?
I have an appreciation for them, but that's certainly not my cup of tea. But the team up in the UK that puts out the Forza series, they generally do really good work. I mean, I don't, like I said, that's not really my go-to, but my understanding it's kind of the gold standard for racing games. and I don't suspect they're going to get too far off of that formula.
No, racing games are. I feel like, at least to me, they're pretty straightforward to make, and it's not really hard. I guess it's not easy to mess up a racing game. I wouldn't think. But yeah, those are widely regarded as really good racing games, and this is the open world one too. So that's always nice.
It's like the one time where I'll vie for open world game as a racing game because that actually is pretty cool. But yeah, so Forza Horizon 4 is coming out October 2nd this year, so that's actually pretty soon. So if you're a fan, you will get it soon. So moving along, we got Halo Infinite. Bait, I know you're a pretty big Xbox guy. Are you excited for this?
Sort of. I did pick up Halo 5 Guardians on the Xbox One when it came out 2 years ago, I think. I was not happy with that game. I didn't like the story, and I think I've aired my negatives with this game on the show before. It felt like I didn't think that I got the story that I was promised in the trailers that I saw. All of the trailer stuff that seemed to be in game, where they were showing off cutscenes or whatever, I didn't come across any of them. And when I came to what you could tell were those parts from the trailer in the game that weren't anything alike like the trailer, so I was very disappointed with Halo 5. But I'm curious to see what is it 343 that has Halo now? Yeah, it's 343.
Yes.
I'm curious to see what they do with this game. And I'll pick it up at some point, I think.
Do you think they'll go open world with this?
That's what I'm hearing, and if they do, cool. I mean, Halo certainly has a lot of there's a lot of room to go open world, which is fine. I think I don't think people would be disappointed or upset if they didn't go open world. But we'll have to wait and see. There's just going to be no battle royale mode. At least I hope.
Thank God, because like everyone else and their brother's doing it now. So it's pretty bad when I'm digging through like headlines, and I'm like, so and so game release date, and like the third one down is this game will not feature a battle royale, and that's like that's the headline, because we have to specify now since it's now the norm to have it. So no, that's funny. Next one is Gears of War 5. Do you play Gears of War, Bader? Or
I've played. Which ones have I played? I've played all of them but 4, so the newest one. It's a if you're not familiar with Gears, it's a third person cover shooter. Really, the story is not awful. I don't think it's the greatest thing ever. Those games are they're highly regarded though. But I mean, it's 4 wasn't. I played the demo of 4. Not my cup of tea. I didn't like it as much as the other ones, but I mean, different strokes for different folks.
I mean, I'm kind of with Beta on this one. Like I played the first one or the first 2 Gears of War. That like after the first one came out, I was like, yeah, good game, okay, but there was nothing that struck me that would have spawned 5 subsequent games. But like I've seen, there's way better shooters out there, and that but he's right though. It's got to follow. Yeah. I mean, it's absolutely got to follow. And it just doesn't really do it for me. I don't think it's a bad game at all. At least the previous offerings, I don't think they were bad. They just, like I said, is not really my thing.
Yeah, I've never played any of them. I just know of them, and it looked nice, but I wasn't getting any of the references, so I was just kind of like, oh, there we go. That's nice. That's coming out in sometime in 2019, but no concrete release date on that one yet. And the one that I was hyped for is Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. So this is the one that I was like sure as fire that it was going to be Bloodborne 2. It was not. However, it is another game from Software. These are the guys that do Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Demon Souls. So you know the style of game. They pretty much are defining the genre in general, and everyone else kind of piggybacks off of them. So this one looks really different from what we've seen before. So you're no longer running around in Victorian clothing or plate armor. Now you're in an Asian setting, and you are this samurai ninja with this prosthetic arm that can do all kinds of crazy stuff like grappling hooks and bombs and stuff like that. So I was kind of reading up on this today. It's interesting. They're removing a lot of things that are familiar from the previous games. Like there's no stat leveling system, there's no armor specifics, there's no different weapons. It seems like almost all of the progression and development of the character is through modifications of the prosthetic arm and skills, and it's more about the mastery of the combat and learning how to manipulate it in a way that makes you better at the encounters and that sort of thing. So it's going to be a big departure, but some of the stuff they're talking about, I couldn't possibly get into right now. But it looks really cool. I'm so hyped for this.
It looks a lot different than Bloodborne. I mean, like there's verticality in this game. Like you're jumping and whatnot. That's interesting.
Yep.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, let's be real. Dark Souls, Bloodborne, those are not complex combat mechanics. Right? Yeah, they're very difficult, but there's nothing elaborate about them. Like this, I'm not a huge player of those games, but I definitely appreciate what they've done for the gaming landscape. And I think from what I saw of the probably the 3 minutes of footage that I saw of it, it is absolutely a 100% departure in terms of minute-to-minute gameplay than their other games. So take that from a guy who's kind of looking on the outside. I like it when studios really push it. Sometimes it doesn't work out, but I like it when they try.
And that's what Bloodborne was for them, is that they said, because people had a way of playing Demon Souls and Dark Souls. It was get a shield, hide behind the shield, and poke everything to death. And they went, cool, let's just take away everyone's shields and make them move faster and see how the gameplay develops. And it's drastic departure, but I love Bloodborne. I was a huge Dark Souls fan, and then Bloodborne came out, and I'm like, that's it. This is awesome. Like, it was much better. So whenever they push themselves and try something new, they do really well because they get to try new things, and they aren't tied to just making the next game of the one they previously made. So I'm really hyped for this one. It looks good. We'll definitely be picking this one up when it comes out. Hopefully in 2019, no release date, but that's kind of what they're looking at. So late 2019, if anything. So we'll keep an eye on that one. I'm very excited for this one.
So this game isn't going to be because Dark Souls is a very you pick up a chest plate, let's say, and you take the better one, right? That's not what this game is going to be.
No, it's they're kind of removing all of the stat-based stuff. It probably that's to make the world more open, so you can go where you want rather than have to go where the enemies are the appropriate level or you get squashed. So I think it will, even though they're removing RPG elements from the game, I think it will actually free up the exploration element, which is probably some of the best done in the industry. Like, if you've looked at the full map of Dark Souls 1, it's insane how they managed to cram all of this stuff together and make it interconnect in a way that makes sense, and it completely surprises you when you 3 hours in, walk out a door and realize you're back at the opening area that you've wrapped around all the way. If they can nail even more of that, it's going to be awesome. Like, I love that in their games.
And there's no skill tree in either Bloodborne or previous Dark Souls games.
No, it was all stat based and armor based. So you get new stuff, but there weren't special skills or anything like that. We might see more of that in this one, but details.
I was about to say, I should think that we're going to see something like that. I mean, because this guy had a metal fan coming out of his fucking arm that acted like a shield, and then I think a hatchet come out of it right there at the very beginning of the trailer. So hopefully we'll see.
Yeah,
some sort of tree for that.
Yep. Yeah, it should be cool.
Somebody's going to beat it with Rock Band drums on day one.
Oh, I'm sure. Won't be me though. All right, so real quick, next one is Devil May Cry 5. Hell yeah. I always love the Devil May Cry series. I actually like the DMC side reboot that everyone hated. It was still a good game, fight me. But this is going back to the original storyline and a continuation of Devil May Cry 4, and they're just kind of abandoning the DMC side story they did. So whatever, it's all good to me. We kind of guessed this might be coming just because of the recent crossover event that they had in Monster Hunter World where you could get Devil May Cry stuff. So the fact that this was announced at E3 wasn't too surprising. But it looks awesome. I'm probably going to pick up the special edition of Devil May Cry 4 on PS4 and play through the whole thing again in prep for this when it comes out. And it's coming out, they said, before the end of the fiscal year 2019, which is in March. So we'll be getting it probably Q1 in next year, which would be pretty awesome.
According to the YouTube page.
Yeah, no, I'll be playing and recording that one because I love Devil May Cry.
What are these games about? I'm watching the trailer and I'm really lost as to.
It's basically just hack and slash and repeat.
You're basically the son of the demon lord, and you kill demons in a very stylish manner.
Yeah,
Livvy
slamming things.
Said it correctly the first time. Game isn't about anything. It's about
You
big,
just
tall,
kill shit.
emo, manga-looking dudes swiping it
with
big
swords and
cartoon bad
guns.
guys.
Though the history of the first game was awesome because it was actually a Resident Evil game, and there was a glitch where if you shot an enemy with a gun, if it was above you, it would kind of juggle it in midair because it had like a knockback, so you could make it float in midair. And they're like, well, we don't want that for Resident Evil, but it's a cool mechanic. So they built an entire game around that glitch where you could like shoot enemies in the air and hold them in place, and do crazy combos and shit. Like, good stuff. Good on Capcom. They're making my year this year. They got some good stuff coming out. Up next is Dying Light 2. If you haven't played Dying Light 1, it is probably the best co-op zombie survival game I've ever played. It's heavy emphasis on first-person parkour. It's great. Livvy, Dante, and myself played a shitload of it back in the day, and it was like way better than it had any right to be. And they've supported it for years after that. Like, they've been releasing big DLC packs and free updates all the time for years and years and years. And I was like, holy shit, they're still working on the game. And then Dying Light 2 got released at E3. I was like, well, shit, I guess I'll pick that one up. So that one looks a lot like more of the same stuff with some bigger world building elements built into it. But no, I'll probably pick that one up too. It's really good. I love that game.
No, the new game looks amazing, and I think for us when we beat the campaign and a little bit of the DLC, we kind of drifted away, not because the game got boring. It was just okay, we're done. But this upcoming game's bringing a different dynamic to that same world, so I'm excited to see how they're going to do that.
Yeah, and the original one still holds the state. Like, it's still a really good game you can get for really cheap. So I mean, if you like zombie survival games and you want like a really streamlined, easy to use co-op experience, fantastic game. You should go pick it up.
Mirror's Edge with zombies. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, yeah. It's no, actually, it's pretty good. It's not like the super easy parkour like Assassin's Creed. Like, you kind of actually have to know what you're doing, like to jump and grab at the right time. So it's really solid. I'd give it a shot if I were you.
While being chewed up, just think of that. So if you fall off the wall, that might be it for you.
You break your ankle and get eaten. Yeah, no, it's good. And the last one that we had from Microsoft was Battletoads. I don't think anyone wanted this, but I guess we're getting it in March 2019.
Somebody probably was super excited.
It's like a meme. You don't make it a reboot of a meme.
That sounds like a poor choice by Microsoft that they could not reel back in.
I mean, it was pretty much just like music and then the word Battletoads, and that was the whole reveal. And everyone went, okay, I guess.
People were like, did you lose a bet you had to make this game?
Pretty much. So yeah, that'll probably be like okay and be on the free Xbox Gold list in like 6 months.
Damn.
Okay, so let's move along. We're going a little slow here. Sony had an interesting presentation. What'd you guys think of the whole like town hall Last of Us set that they built for the first reveal? It was kind of weird.
I thought it was charming. They were getting people immersed in the experience.
I mean, it was cool. I'm just glad they didn't do it for every single game because that would have taken
They
forever.
didn't have enough time. Yeah, it was just like the two big
Livvy's
ones.
being good cop tonight.
She's been it was okay. I think that they were trying to. The weird part was the guy playing the banjo and no one paying attention. It was just like, what is this?
I think
is this a game thing or
this E3? I think really threw people for a loop because they're like, okay, banjos, rock bands. I was trying to find if there's maybe an E3 theme this year, and it was like live instruments. I'm not sure, but everyone was just playing something, which is weird.
Yeah, it was different. But The Last of Us Part 2 looks really good, and I'm ashamed to admit that I never actually finished the first one, even though the game is amazing. We just never got to it, not because the game was bad, just other stuff came up.
It was scary.
I can handle it. I was getting eaten a lot at the school portion, like eaten a lot. I could not get through this one portion, but it's good. It's a good game. It's interesting to see them take Ellie as the main character because at least from where I was in the game, she did not like killing people, and in this new gameplay, she definitely had no problem with murdering like 7 people in like 2 minutes. So
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't even know because I mean, when we get to the end, we might find out. But she was pretty much useless in the first game. She had a backpack and she hid, and you're like, "What good are you?" And this one, she's on her own. So I'm assuming at the end of the first one, there's probably some major turnover where she learns how to defend herself.
yeah, no, it's I do have some concern about her
Have
mental
you
state
not
though.
played the first one? Did you not play the first one, Livvy?
I am a watcher of games usually, so I got as far as Pokey played.
Okay, that 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 game. You're correct. In the first game, she was moderately useless, but by the end of the game, it's not. She certainly didn't. She didn't become like lethal, but the worth of the character. Like I'm not a fan of that game. I appreciate the game, but I would say this: they did a fantastic job with the story and relationship building in that game, and by the end of it, you're kind of on board for her. And from what I saw, I think that's a natural progression because it looks like it's fast forward more than a few years from where the first game left off.
Right.
Mm-hmm. No, we'll have to finish the first one so that we can be better prepared for the next.
The story should be really good. I mean, Naughty Dog does really well with story.
Yeah.
Uncharted, was fantastic story-wise. And like Jay said, they know how to develop characters over the course of games. So I'm excited to see how they've developed Ellie from being, how she was in the first game to how they're presenting her in this second game.
Yeah, no, it should be good. I have faith that from what I saw of the first game that they'll make it work and it'll feel right, So it's like the E3 of sequels. I have to go back and replay a bunch of other games so I can play the sequel to them. But that's good because a lot of the ones getting sequels are worth it. So I'm excited for it. So SpiderMan, did you guys check this one out? It looks pretty
awesome.
They would be excited.
That game looks wicked good. That game looks just shit hot. Like I've seen the so Game Informer did a big cover story in like a couple months ago with a ton of gameplay footage, and I am 100% on board for that game. 100%
now,
on
is
board.
this a sequel to the Spider-Man game that came out last year, 2 years ago?
No.
Okay.
No. This is its all new, its own thing, and I would tell you that this has the potential to be like here. Interestingly enough, there's not a whole lot of great superhero, like comic book superhero video games. Arkham, the Arkham series probably is certainly up there. Spider-Man, surprisingly, has had some killer offerings in the past, like mostly Sony, Sony exclusive type stuff. They've had some pretty good Spider-Man games. This one looks killer, and what I was able to discern from the story was pretty awesome. There's about 15 minutes of gameplay footage that you can watch, and it is super duper smooth. Like they put a lot of time into figuring out how to Spider-Man like motivate around New York City. And it's good. The story beats that I saw were pretty good. It kind of takes place it's not really the Peter Parker in high school kind of Peter Parker. It's definitely he's been Spider-Man for a while, and it kind of picks up when he's probably mid to late 20s or so. But it looks good, very polished. The mobility aspect, all the people that have played it, when I saw like a bunch of interviews on different YouTube snaps and stuff like that, they say that the movement, it's just fun to move around and play and kind of experience being Spider-Man in that game.
No, I mean it looks really solid, and you're very much on point. That the Spider-Man has like been the oddity in that it's had a lot of really solid video games since like I think PlayStation One. I played like the old Spider-Man game. That was pretty fun, if I remember. So,
Yep.
it doesn't surprise me that this one also looks really
I know I
solid.
personally put a lot of hours into Spider-Man 2 on the GameCube. That was a fun game. So I've always had a soft spot for Spider-Man games, and this one, damn, looks good.
Yeah, it sure does. And that one's coming out soon, September 7th. That's actually coming up pretty quick here. So we'll get our hands on that pretty in a few months
One
here.
more
So
thing
that's
about it.
pretty
though.
cool.
It seems like all of the villains that they're showing in this game so far have been villains that we've had in past Spider-Man games, and that kind of disappoints me. But I can live with that. I think.
Well, I think one of the big bads is going to be somebody you
really?
haven't seen, Mr. Negative. Um, yeah. Now, what they're also really doing is, if you look at it, they're trying to bring the Sinister Six out. But the kind of the thing about it is, Spider-Man, unlike he really has a fairly defined rogues gallery that he works with. I mean, he branches off. I mean, there's other storylines and stuff out there. It's a fairly wide variety, but his like stable of bad guys that he kind of contends with tends to be, surprisingly consistent, even in the comics. So I'm kind of okay with it. The RPG mechanics that they built in are pretty cool. They've definitely kind of looked into how they want to do mechanics for Spider-Man, in terms of like his progression. And there are some skill mechanics, but a lot of it is there's a lot of mix and matching of his costumes. Reportedly, there are quite a few variations of Spider-Man costumes that all have different capabilities, abilities, and stat bonuses. And that's one of the ways that you can kind of customize your Spider-Man experience, which I actually think is a pretty novel approach to doing that.
No, that's pretty cool that they're kind of changing it up a bit and making it a little bit different than the previous titles. So, I think that'll do well. I think that given the current state of how, Marvel superheroes are doing, this game will do quite well. Okay, so the next one is a game that I thought we would get like some actual information on. And we got more of what the fuck. And so this is Death Stranding from Hideo Kojima. This is the guy who does did Metal Gear Solid. So what I thought I was going to get was like gameplay and details on how the game actually works. And what I really got was watching Norman Reedus tear his toenail off, which was the most horrifying thing I was not expecting to see, but we all saw it. So yeah, this is weird. In Kojima in interviews afterwards was like, yeah, so part of the game is trying to figure out what kind of game it is. So you're already kind of playing in a way. And I'm like, you're such an asshole.
Kojima's like, got him.
No, he's always been a fan of kind of the meta of the games and how playing the game in of itself is kind of part of the gaming experience, and in this case trying to figure out what's going on is part of the experience. So I do think that in terms of world building, this is probably the biggest one so far, and we could probably sit for an hour and break down what we were shown and make a lot of speculations, but I think that this was probably the most information we've gotten, even if it's still very vague and up in the air. But I will give him credit where it's due. I know nothing about this game, but I want to play it simply because it looks interesting in what's going on, even if they aren't going to tell you what it actually is. And I think that kind of speaks for itself that, he's developed this reputation where it's like, I know it's going to be a quality product. I have no idea what it is, but I'll probably buy it anyways. That's not many people can say that in the gaming industry. I think that's pretty impressive.
I got nothing on this, man. I've watched
like,
it.
what?
I think I've seen everything they put out on it, which ain't much. I got nothing.
See, I think it should be a social experiment. Is they should just launch the game and tell no one what it's about or what kind of game it is. Just see how people buy it.
That would actually be pretty slick if you think about it. A lot of people would buy that game just because they're like, "What the hell is this thing?"
And just kind of see like how they figure it out over time. Like he would do something like that, and it's unlikely that Sony's gonna, give the green light for that marketing approach. But God, I would love it to be some giant social experiment of we're just gonna throw this thing out there and see what happens. Because he'd be all for it. But yeah, no, we'll see. People were disappointed. I was kind of disappointed because I wanted more, but at the same time, it's kind of fun to watch the insanity continue. So I'm not going to even try to put a release date on this. It's going to be ready when he feels like it, and it could be years from now. Who
when you're
knows?
gonna get it. I mean, he did give us a treat. He did show us that new character played by Lindsay Wagner, so and a
True.
very young CG version of her. So I mean, you can only assume why he went that direction of not using her real aged self. So maybe it's a lot of speculation, but we got
Yeah.
something, right?
No, it's interesting, like I said, at the very least. So I will look forward to that, whatever it is. But yeah, it's more speculation from here on out. Next one is going to be Resident Evil 2 remake. Yeah. So again, Capcom just killing it this year. So this is going to be running on the RE engine, which is the one they use for Resident Evil 7, which, as you all know, I'm a huge fan of. But this is a remake of the second game, which I actually have not played. So the fact that they're doing a full HD remake is legit. So it's going to be third person this time. It's not first person again, but it's following a very young Leon throughout the game of Resident Evil 2. So I'm pumped for this one. We'll definitely be doing a recording for this one as well.
Because I couldn't bring myself to play this game.
Yeah, I am
good.
I am 100% on board with Pokey playing this and not me.
It's funny because I played these when they first came out, so I played the original. So of course I'm going to be comparing every moment, but so far it's like, whoa, that zombie didn't look that juicy in the original.
So many polygons.
Oh my god!
Wow.
Oh dear lord! PlayStation?
Had to be PlayStation, yeah.
There were
So yeah, this one's actually coming out January 25th next year. So the fact we got a release date on that, I'm like, hell yeah! So that'll be a fun January surprise to work on. So I'm really looking forward to that one. It looks good. Next one is Ghost of Tsushima. It looks awesome. It's like a samurai drama, pretty much, and it looks absolutely gorgeous. Jesus, it looks good. Like you guys watched the trailer, right? Like when they're in everything's burning and like
Oh yeah.
blossoms from it's like holy crap! Like they put some time into making this look good.
Now,
And
who
of course-
thinks that's going to be on a next gen console? I'm raising my
right.
hand
Yeah.
right now.
Those leaves. I mean, like just looking at how everything was rendered.
Well, we're in that awkward period again where it's going to be games start straddling. In Cyberpunk might be the same way where it's like they'll release it on like PS4 and Xbox One, but then they'll have like the better version on PS5 and
Halo's going to be the same way, I
Xbox,
think.
whatever. Yeah, I think we're kind of in that period
that are like that. Several.
because like some of them look way too like. Don't get me wrong, there's some really sexy games on like PS4, especially if you're playing on a pro version. But like some of the stuff I saw, I'm like, I don't think it's gonna look that good when it comes out, at least on current gen. So we'll see. But yeah, this one looks real nice as well.
God, this game looks good.
And then the last one they showed off was Control. Really not much on this, but it looks kind of like a very surrealist, kind of supernatural. I don't want to say survival, but just kind of like an adventure thriller game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what to make of this, but it looked
I'm
cool.
on board for this. I was not tracking this game very much. I mean, I acknowledge there was a game called Control that was being made. I'm on board after watching that. We talked a little bit about it on our normal Sunday show, but that looked really good. Because pretty much the only thing they showed you was like the second to second kind of in the moment gameplay, and just what I can tell from the combat mechanics of like how that works, like that game looks pretty wicked good. It's a bit, there's definitely some quantum break in the DNA, you can kind of do that, but I color me intrigued. This is kind of made it on my little whiteboard in my office of like, shit, I'm gonna like kind of find something out about.
Yeah, no, I'm keen to see some more information on that one because it looks at the very least interesting. And like you said, Quantum Break. I was trying to think what it reminded me of, and that's definitely it. I couldn't put words to it, but that's right. So should be interesting. So next up's Bethesda, and yeah, they had one hell of a show. Let's start with, however, my award for the biggest cringe moment of all of E3. So, Bait, I know, Jay saw it, but
No,
Bait, did
I
you
didn't.
watch the
What
Rage
happened?
2 reveal?
Hold on, I'm going to watch it.
Oh my god. Okay, so Yeah, so Rage was a game that came out. It was kind of like trying to jump on the Borderlands kind of post-apocalyptic Mad Max sort of deal. It was okay. It did okay. It wasn't really much of a blockbuster. It just kind of came out and people were like, yeah, it was decent. Pretty average. And so people were kind of surprised to hear that there was going to be a Rage 2. And so no one's really like hyped for this. They're just like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess the sequel could be pretty good too.
Wait, who the fuck is this guy?
But then they get up there. Well, which one?
I
'Cause
don't
there's a
know.
lot
The
of
first guy
people
that worked out
were
in the all
involved in this
white.
cringe.
Who's that?
Oh, it's Andrew WK. The party guy.
The only way I can describe him is he's kind of a redneck from South Carolina that he doesn't have any talent, but he can show up at a house party and scream at the top of his lungs, and tends to get to have a bloody face quite a bit because he gets hit in the face with bottles and he tries to crowd surf and all this stuff. He's like, if you've gone to any major sporting event, I guarantee, or played a Madden football game circa like mid 2000s.
He's not in the band. It's just this one guy.
No, it's kind of him. I'm sure he's got like some kind of backup crew, but it's not good.
So yeah, we go from, hey, let's get excited about Rage 2 that no one really cares that much about, to Andrew WK, who no one really cares about, doing a concert that no one really cares about. And then like the lead developer and like their PR guy get up on stage, and the developer's like this like really tall,
oh my God,
like
dude, this guy,
probably like 6.5, 7 foot tall guy, like a big guy. And the PR guy's like, yeah, so these guys have been up to some big stuff. It like looks up at the guy. Silence.
Oh my God, the crowd was
Silence.
just like, what? The guy was like, please just show some emotion, crowd, please.
And so the developer's like trying to like, yeah, like get the crowd excited, and people are like, yay, it kind of dies, and then silence, and they just stare at the crowd for like, it felt like an eternity, and I'm like, oh my God, make it end. And so then they show off the game, and the game looks okay. It looks like a more colorful version of Rage 1, which was okay. But God, the reveal was just like, make it end, please. What is going on here? So yeah, that was the Rage 2 reveal. It was painful. Luckily, that was probably the weakest part of Bethesda's reveal, because they had a lot of good stuff, really exciting stuff. So probably the big one is Fallout 76. This is like the polarizing effect on the internet right now. So you guys are familiar with the type of gameplay that Fallout has, right? It's typically a single player RPG.
Lived in Rock for the last like 17 years.
Yeah. Well, if Zell was here, you'd have no clue. So, but Fallout 76 is meant to be a multiplayer game, which is a first for the series, and people are kind of freaking out about it. And the idea being that you are the people that emerge from the vault after the bombs drop, like 20 years, 25 years. And so there's really not people in the wasteland right now because, the bombs dropped. So the whole concept they went with is that all NPCs that are human are other players. So when you go into this multiplayer, it's not like instance PvP or anything like that. It's kind of like you're out there, you're doing your Fallout thing, you're doing missions, but if you run into another person, it's another player. And they may or may not attack you, they may be cooperative. It's kind of this, I'll say, almost like EVE Online sandbox sort of deal. And it sounds interesting, but people are losing their shit over it because they're like, this isn't Fallout. Fallout's a single player game only. Oh my God. And Bethesda's like, listen, we wanted to try this for a long time. We're doing it. Sorry, get over it. It's pretty much.
Well, I think, my understanding is they also threw them a bit of a bone. They said that there is a story, there is a storyline that you go through, and that you can and will interact with other players as you're operating through it. Now, at least that was kind of how I took some of their comments. Because effectively, every MMO does it. They give you things to do, which ultimately leads you to interact with other people. So Fallout as a game, here's the big beef I have. I don't really mind the whole open world MMO-ish type thing. I think it's kind of cool if you look at where they're doing it in the timeline. It's way earlier than pretty much any of the other Fallout games. So it's definitely a different kind of vibe to it. The part that I don't know that I'm into is the VAT system. That is a marquee part of Fallout gameplay, and I would offer that is the signature combat mechanic that they have is VATs, and I've not seen it replicated very well in any other game, frankly. Not a lot of people try, and it's a very simple mechanic, but it works super well in that environment, and you get a really cool kind of power fantasy off of it. But you're certainly not going to be using that system in this style of gameplay. Now, I think they're going to say, well, hey, that technology hasn't been invented yet because this is so early in the Fallout timeline, yada yada yada. Okay, I got all that, but that's part one. Part two is there's actually a really well structured laydown of the Fallout timeline in terms of what's going on in the Fallout world. So, what are you ultimately going to do that's going to have any? I mean, like, you could build like this phenomenal, like, rebuilt from the ashes near utopian community that, like, I don't know what gets overrun by super mutants in like 150 years or whatever, because none of that shit, like, there's no mention of anybody that rebuilt rebuilt the quote unquote wasteland before you start arriving in the rest of the Fallout history. So, and that's kind of a minor lore quibble, I'm sure they can work around that from a story perspective. The VATS thing is, I'm a little bit like, I don't know about how that's going to work.
It makes me think a bit how they handled, and they can elaborate, in like Red Dead Redemption. There's not like a VAT system, but you can kind of go into this like eagle eye thing where time slows down and it allows you to like make precision shots. In multiplayer that goes away, but instead it's just you kind of like cursor over like body parts and it locks on, and then so when you release it, it'll fire like 6 or 7 shots that will hit the body parts you locked onto. So it's not quite the same, but they still kind of have a similar mechanic. They were talking about VATS and saying that it is a thing, like you can skill into it, but I imagine that obviously it won't be a slow down time because it doesn't really work in a multiplayer setting. It's still there, but I am really curious to see how they're going to kind of tweak that to make it work in real time.
But okay, but that's
well, they're the way they handle the RPG elements in Fallout 4 was probably the weakest part of the game. I like Fallout 4, but they ripped out like some of the best stuff. So we'll see. We'll see. I'm more excited from the sense that I wish I could play Borderlands 3, but I can't. So if I can play like this co-op somehow, that might scratch the itch to get me to gearboxing their shit together. But we'll see.
I don't know, man. Some of the thing with the NPCs kind of rubbed me the wrong way for at least not having raiders. Like, I get it from your lore thing, but then oh no, it's okay. We made new ghouls that could use guns. Like, that doesn't help. That doesn't make it better.
Yeah, I mean they're obviously experimenting here. I think it's going to be very up in the air on how well this turns out. It could be very good, it could be terrible. I think it could go probably 50-50 depending on how they do some things, because there's definitely some core elements to Fallout that I think are really cornerstones of what makes the game good. And some of those are going to take some interesting ways to translate that into a multiplayer game, and if they just kind of take it out or they translate it poorly, you're going to really feel that. And so I'm not sure. I'll probably pick it up just to kind of give it a shot, see what it's all about. But I'm not by any means holding my breath and assuming it's going to be the next Fallout New Vegas, because that shit was amazing. I think it'll probably be pretty decent overall. At the very least, the co-op experience will probably be fun. So next one is one that I was kind of expecting, but still cheered like an idiot when it came up, and that is Doom Eternal. Doom is going to be obviously the sequel to Doom 2016, which I have raved about as one of the best games I've played in a very long time. Not much details on it other than it's happening. They show off some new demons, and that more details are coming at QuakeCon, which is running August 9th through the 12th later this year. So I'm looking forward to that one. They could probably take pretty much what they did before and just add some new story, some stuff in the snap map, and I'll be satisfied. Fantastic value in that game.
They're adding 2 scoops extra of demons. That's what we have so far. So you get double the slamming.
Yeah, no, and I could try to build something in SnapMap and melt my PS4 again.
Oh no, maybe not.
Livvy's like, "Oh, I watched you play Doom," and then I sat in the visual editor for SnapMap and programmed for like 6 hours a day, and she's like, "Can we do something else? This is really
It
boring."
was such a trap. I was like, that was gonna see blood,
You have figured out his version of playing a game is not the
right?
same as most other people's. This is so I'm going to go back. I got to digress. I got to go back into the Wayback Machine. One of my original engagements with Pokey about gaming, he's going on and on. I don't even remember the game, but he was waxing eloquent about building furniture in a video game.
Oh my god.
And
Jeez,
I was
what was
like,
that?
Was it Final
I
Fantasy?
literally took my headphones off, made sure it was on mute, and said, "What the fuck?" Put my headphones back on, and I was like, "Oh, that sounds fascinating. Furniture."
Fantastic. Building furniture. I can only imagine like some Final Fantasy
It was
kind of.
probably Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
Jesus, no, that's probably right, or something. No, my idea of playing a game is like, wow, this character creator is great. Let me play with it for 12 hours straight. Like Lydia was gonna watch me play like Fallout 4 when it came out, and I'm like, give me a day to play in the character creator and get it just right, and then I'll play the game. And she's like, what? So that's usually what I'm focused on. So yeah, I want to play Doom Snap Map. The story's okay, and I don't care about the multiplayer, but I really want to play this game, so it looks good. The next one that they announced is Starfield. This is one that we've kind of known about for a while, but this is kind of the official announcement. So Starfield is their way of pushing into a new IP. It's going to kind of deliver on the same sort of gameplay that you see in Elder Scrolls, that you see in Fallout, but it's going to be in a sci-fi setting. So really zero details on this other than it's going to be that kind of experience, and kind of a cool title screen, and that was it. So they were kind of talking about, they're like, it's playable, but it's definitely like in the middle of development, so it's not going to be anytime soon. Don't get your hopes up that's coming out like this year or next year or anything like that. But it is a thing, and
Now,
I like sci-fi, so I'm interested.
Yeah, I'm kind of on board for that. I mean, I trust them more than I trust Robert Space Industries or fucking right now BioWare with Mass Effect.
Todd Howard did say in the No Clip documentary, I can't remember if it was in that first one that they put out or if it was in the one where they were talking about the making of Fallout 76. But he did say that Starfield is a single player game, which is good news to hear. I know it was last year, I think, or 2 years ago, where Bethesda went on this. I think it was like save single player gaming crusade, and I know a lot of people this year were kind of disappointed to learn that Fallout 76 wasn't quite a single player game, and they kind of threw Bethesda some shit for that. But I think it's good that Starfield will be a single player game, according to Todd Howard.
Yeah, no, it should be good to keep an eye on. And similarly, they finally announced it that, hey, they're going to make Elder Scrolls 6, which I think people have been screaming about for a while now after the 47th and a half release of Skyrim on something. I'm still waiting for Skyrim on my Nest thermostat. I know it's coming soon.
On your Alexa.
But
yeah.
On that joke, you can play, and I thought that was a joke. It's actually real. You can actually play Skyrim on your Alexa. I can't talk too loudly or the other room will wake up, but that's actually a thing, that it's text-based Skyrim on your Amazon Echo. So I haven't given it a shot yet because I'm a little terrified of what might happen, but that is a thing as well.
Hey man, I'm just telling you right now, this is how Skynet becomes self-aware. You gotta watch it.
It's true. It's true. What did you guys think of the Elder Scrolls Blades thing, the cell phone game?
I mean, it's Skyrim on a cell phone.
Yeah, I got no interest in that.
Yeah, for me, and I've said this before, I don't like action games on a cell phone. I just can't get into them. So I was like, well, that's everything I don't like in a cell phone game. So someone let me know how it is, and I'll comment.
Well, here's the thing. Like, that's not like, in terms of like kind of spin-off IPs that are hitting the mobile market. That's definitely a growing trend, and I would offer. I think one of the developers even said so pretty bluntly. It was like, hey, look, we see the numbers. Mobile gaming is that's a large part of the market share that most of you don't see. So I suspect there's going to be more and more of this. Like, I mean, they announced Command and Conquer.
Yeah, you're talking
Let
about
the
game
crowd go
nobody wants.
bananas,
Oh,
and then
jeez.
said, and it's on mobile. And that was like troll level Kojima right there. That was good.
I mean, I guess it's better a Skyrim to phone rather than like Fallout Shelter set in Tamriel or wherever. So there's that. Oh, and you can play it with your phone going vertical, not just horizontal, which is kind of cool, I think. But nah.
In case you have to play one-handed,
Dude,
which
that's a
was
great
also a
joke.
very
What are you
cringy
talking
joke
about?
that I just didn't need to hear. Oh, it's painful. For some reason, I'm like, Bait would probably laugh at this, and you did. So, all right. So that looks interesting. You'll tell me how it is playing one-handed with Elder Scroll Blades. Next up was Wolfenstein Youngbloods. This is the third installment of kind of the Wolfenstein reboot. Interestingly enough, it's going to be about BJ's twin daughters, so it's a co-op game, which is pretty cool. I like co-op games, so Livvy and I might pick this one up. I imagine it's going to be pretty much what you were expecting from the last two games, which is Wolfenstein. So, looks pretty neat. I haven't played any of the newer ones, but they look good just because I was like, yay, Doom, and it's similar. So I might pick this one up. We'll see, but it looks pretty good.
Yeah, the previous ones were pretty legit. I mean, they were definitely worth kind of worth your money or worth your time, so to speak. I'm kind of interested to see what they do with this. I'm not, I'm not a rush out and buy it if it's Wolfenstein guy, but I think they're going to have a solid property on their hands when this comes out if they follow the first games in that reboot series.
Yeah, I think you nailed it right there. And finally, for Bethesda, we have Prey Mooncrash. So I had kind of talked about a hint of this several months ago, DLC for Prey. So that actually came out like that night. So Livvy and I have already downloaded it, and we have started playing it. Episode 1 is already up on the Biomassed YouTube, and Episode 2 is going up tonight. So yeah, it's really solid. Like it's really good. It's very challenging. It's kind of a roguelike, procedurally generated, items and enemies are in different locations every time. And it's a lot harder than the main campaign, which is kind of good because the main campaign started off really solid. It was very challenging, and then kind of got easy towards the end. This one, since it restarts every time you die, you kind of get that beginning gameplay experience every single time, which is really solid. So Prey Mooncrash is really good. You should check it out on our YouTube channel for Biomassed. And going into Ubisoft now, Bait, go ahead. Talk about Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
Okay. Let's see. Where are my notes? I am excited. I'll kind of rehash what we talked about on Sunday for it. So kind of continuing on the same vein of Assassin's Creed Origin, the next installment in the Assassin's Creed franchise, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, is going to feature all kinds of really cool RPG elements. You're going to get a pointless dialogue tree that nobody asked for. You're going to get the ability to pick between two assassins, which people have been kind of asking for, but there's really no need. You're going to get some romance options, which is kind of cool, I guess, if you're into that kind of thing. Let's see what else. Combat, you're going to see some Origins style combat, which is pretty cool. I quite like the combat. It's a nice departure from past Assassin's Creed. Naval combat is going to make a return. It's a first since I think like Black Flag or Rogue that we saw naval combat come back in like a main centerpiece kind of system. And basically, if you watch the little gameplay thing, it looks like Ubisoft, whoever made this. Quebec, just whenever in Montreal they said, hey, give us your naval combat code, and Montreal was like, okay, here it is. And so it's just a copy and paste version of that. Except you can ram straight through ships and like make two halves of a boat, so that was pretty fucking gnarly. But I mean, obviously you can't board it. You can customize your little dude to a greater degree. So instead of just upgrading the one chest plate that you have, the one set of bracers that you have, like in Origins, you can pick up a new chest plate or a new helmet or whatever and upgrade those. So that's cool, I guess. Ubisoft doesn't know how to name a game, so we're actually going to jump backwards in time. We're set during the Peloponnesian War this time, so that's about 431 to 404 BC. Just for reference, Origins was set between 49 BC and 47 BC, so not really the origin. And as best I can tell, you're not really playing an assassin this time around. You're just playing a Spartan, male or female, whichever you roll with. Yeah, and you get like a special spear,
But you're the
and that's how
child
you have all
of
these assassin powers.
Leonidas.
Yeah. So,
You think they're running out of
supposedly
ideas
this
yet?
is the second game in the
You
trilogy.
think they're there yet?
So, I don't know. They at least have one more idea.
Oh Christ!
I think if they just released
People
the
would
game
still,
and called
yeah,
it
you don't have
Odyssey,
to attack Assassin's
people would be
Creed on
super cool with it.
Yeah, because I mean, am I wrong to go? So
yeah.
there's no hidden blade in Assassin's Creed. Isn't that like the whole icon of the game, of the
I think-
series, and it's a spear
I
instead?
think the closest thing you're going to
okay, I
see to Hidden
guess.
Blade, if we're
It just-
following
it's
Assassin's
weird.
Creed lore, and if my history is correct, is what's his name? Xerxes. Xerxes is going to make an appearance in the game, and you're going to kill him with a very early concept of a hidden blade. I don't quite know what that's going to look like. I assume it'll involve you cutting off your ring finger to make it work, like we saw in 1 and 2 in Origins. But we'll see. So, I mean, if anything, that's going to be a thing, and that'll probably come at the end of the game, and they'll be like, oh, look, the hidden blade in 431 BC. Whoop-de-fucking-do. I'm not excited for this game. I'm going to buy it, though, but I don't want to. Oh, and then they're going to add 150-man conquest battle. So instead of having districts like they had in past games, and you're going to free those districts, you're going to participate in these big 150-man battles, basically. Well, yeah, kind of. And you're going to get really,
Battle
really
Royale.
gnarly loot drops
Assassin's
from the
Creed
bosses
Battle
and
Royale.
those, and
It's
that's going to
coming.
be your
Just
endgame
wait for it.
content. Ubisoft, just stop making these games, man.
I'll be honest with you. I've been off the Assassin's Creed kind of wagon for a
Yeah.
long time. I just like the setting, and it looked good. If I sort of make the mental leap and just call it like, it's like, hey, it's like a kind of a fantastical history type game. I actually might buy this. But like I said, I've been kind of way off the Assassin's Creed bandwagon for a while, mostly because there's just parts of it I just can't get my head around. It's just not, it's not that great. And actually, as cool as everybody thought Assassin's Creed 1 was, that was an incredibly repetitive game.
Oh, it was bad.
Yeah,
it was not good.
So I played 1 and 2, and I enjoyed them, but that was kind of my last taste, and I never really jumped back into the series. This actually has me kind of interested, just because of the way it looks and kind of how it frames. So I don't know that I'm any more or less lukewarm than Bait is, but it's one of those like, hey, if I don't have anything else cooking in my library, or if I got like a long weekend to kill, I might actually go pick this up.
Well, just let me know how it is, because I haven't touched the series since Assassin's Creed 3. So yeah, no, we'll see. I hope that they can somehow revitalize it and make me really want to play the series again. But yeah, for me, I'm kind of with Bait. I'm like, we'll see. I've got too much stuff to play to really spend a lot of time on a game like this. That's usually a huge time sink, so it's difficult for me to kind of sign off on picking it up. So then we had The Division 2. So The Division 1 was a game that I played and enjoyed, and then I grew to hate it and stopped playing it. And then I've heard that they really went back to improve a lot of stuff, and I never gave it a shot again, but I've heard from many people, prevalent YouTubers that were really following it, who said, honestly, I was wrong. They've actually fixed this. It's really good now. And so Division 2 was announced several months ago, and they showed it off at E3 this year. And I was like, okay, we'll see what it is. And so Livvy and I are sitting here watching it, and they go through all the stuff, and I kind of sighed. I looked at her, and she sighed, and I'm like, that looks pretty good. Like it looks like they've actually kind of thought about what they did wrong and directly made changes to make it better. And kind of some interesting takes that I took from this is that Division 1's story was okay, but like the campaign itself was a good experience. It was very enjoyable progressing through the story. And when you got to the end game, when the story ended, that it all kind of just fell apart. So it's interesting when they start talking about this, they mention the story for like all of 6 seconds and go straight to, let's talk about the end game. Almost kind of like, that we've got the story down, but let's talk about the part that we know that we kind of messed up on. And they were talking about the end game and how there's different kind of activities and there's like specialization trees you can go down and kind of hyper focus your character so you can synergize with your group, and that they're adding like 8-man raids and all this other stuff. It really looks like they went and said, yeah, we know the weakest part of our first game was this, and this is our focus, and we're not going to worry so much about the other stuff because we know we can do that right. So yeah, I was annoyed, but I'm like, it actually looks kind of good. So they've made some changes, like I said, like specializations. They've got they said that they're really trying to tone down the bullet sponge enemies. And interestingly, at the presentation, they like didn't mention PvP like at all. And again, like the Dark Zone was a total mess in Division 1, and it was like the primary thing they focused on. And for this, they're like, it exists, but let's talk about the end game. And I think that you can really see that they've changed a lot of the focus of what they're going to try to really hammer on, and don't focus on the stuff that they know is either not going to work in this fantastical way that they, originally hoped for, or that they knew they got right in the first place. So,
And I'm kind of interested too, because I know they didn't focus on, say, the Dark Zone during their presentation, but off screen in one of their other videos or interviews, they were like, "Oh no, Dark Zone is definitely a key element." But I think they learned that people just don't want to sit and hear about the Dark Zone. It's like PTSD almost for just that game. It's a terrible experience, and like no one really wants to go back in there if you had a bad time. So I don't know if they're going to come back later and maybe try and soften that re-entry for the
I did
for the
see.
for the people who don't want to.
Well, to Livvy's point, I saw, they had a pretty cool developer interview that was, I would say, probably about 20 minutes long, and they did delve into the Dark Zone question relatively well. And what they kind of pointed out was, and really, it's if you ever want to know if a game developer is actually, are they working on the game in a meaningful way, you really want to know, do they understand the problem? Do they understand what, not the symptom of the problem? Players are unhappy. Well, why? What is making them unhappy, or what's creating a negative game experience? What struck me is that they very clearly understand the problem or the friction that they wrestle with when you introduce that PvP element in the way the Dark Zone works. And what they were trying to figure out is, they were like, look, our design goal is to allow you to play in a way that you want to play, and still be able to compete when you get into the Dark Zone, or whatever what iteration of the Dark Zone is going to be. So that actually, I'm kind of on board for that. Now, what they still haven't figured out is, because of the RPG, kind of almost like WoW, like ones and zeros going on behind the screen, like you and Pokey kind of alluded to, and this is ultimately what turned me away from the Division. I can't stand unloading, like all kind of firepower into a guy that's dressed just like me in a basically a hyper realistic world like the Division. It utterly breaks the immersion, and it's not fun for me. So one thing I caught in that same developer interview was, previously, when you would hear people say, "Hey, what do you want everybody to know about the Division?" as it was coming out, the general manager, or the game developer, or the head game guy, I remember very, very clearly. He's like, they have to remember that it is an RPG. It's not a first person shooter. What he was alluding to was exactly what I just described, I suspect. Whereas these guys took a very different tact when they were sort of like, "Hey, well, how is this different? Like, is this an RPG?" It's like, there's absolutely very strong RPG elements, but we've really tried to polish and really hone or adjust kind of that combat experience, or like the actual gameplay experience. So it kind of makes me wonder how this is, I really I'm interested in seeing how this works out. The Division is a game I desperately wanted to get into and just like turn it into a hobby, but I just couldn't get past some of it. If they've adjusted some things, I might be back on board for putting it in a long-term playlist. But I'd really have to see how it works and get a good critical review of it before I dove in on the game again.
Yeah, and I think that you're never going to get away from that level of unrealism of, I've got like a real life gun shooting a real life guy who's wearing maybe some plate armor that he's fashioned together, but still, it shouldn't take 30 bullets to kill him. It should probably take like 2. Maybe, I'm not sure
the problem in the Division is it would take multiple magazines. That's the crazy part.
Yes. And I think that they're really trying to move away from that extreme, because like someone actually pointed out pretty interestingly in the trailer that on the enemy side things died a lot faster, and they also noted that a lot of the effects that you would see like for like the player abilities, like the rapid healing and the insane damage reduction and that sort of thing, a lot of those were absent from the gameplay that was shown, and they might be in there, but it might stand to reason that they're going, let's calm down in some of these extreme builds and kind of pull everything into a more reasonable scope where, yeah, there's still going to be some enemies that take more shots than you would normally think they would, but it's not going to be like I've got an LMG with 300 shots in it and I might get into half health in the process. It'll be like somewhere in between what the Division was and like what Tom Clancy's Wildlands was. So it's not like 400 volts to kill a guy, but it's probably more than 2. So I want to see where it lands. I think there's a lot of tuning right there, and I don't think you'll get entirely away from that unrealistic nature, but I think it's going to be a lot better, and that's part of what kind of caught my attention, because no one liked I gotta empty an entire magazine into this guy to kill him. It was stupid,
Well, shit, especially when he was wearing a damn hoodie.
Yeah,
a hoodie.
So I was, like I said, reluctant to go. It looks kind of decent what they're doing, and they seem to have definitely shifted their focus. And Jay brought some excellent points as well. So I'll keep an eye on this one. I'm not like yay pre-order, but I'm like, okay, let's see how it goes. Worth keeping an eye on. Where before I was like, I'm done with the Division. I don't care. This has kind of reignited at least some interest on my part. So we'll keep an eye on it. Some other small things that came up. So For Honor is getting another expansion, October 16th, called Marching Fire. It's going to introduce a lot of Chinese warriors into the world. I think For Honor is kind of up there with like Rainbow Six Siege, in a game that had a really rough start and then managed to kind of pick itself back up and with better support. And this is kind of what I alluded to before, with Ubisoft doing a better job at supporting the games, bringing it to a point where it can actually be functioning and successful. So, I'm glad that those developers were able to turn their stuff around, and now they're obviously good enough to keep releasing expansions. And Rainbow Six is the same way. They wanted to have like 100 operators at some point, and they're like on their way with releasing new characters constantly to get to that like 100-man point. So, they both kind of had a presentation, and it was mostly kind of a, yeah, we're continuing to do stuff, we're being successful, please play our game. I think For Honor was free for like that weekend or something if you picked it up. So it's out there, and they just kind of wanted to talk about what they were doing with it. The other thing that came up is a game called Starling. I had not heard of this before, but it kind of looks almost like a Skylander sort of thing, where you've got like this vehicle mount thing on your controller, and you can like snap on different parts, and when you put certain parts on, it modifies that vehicle in the game. Not really my thing, but it was kind of cool that they are bringing the game to Nintendo Switch as part of their new Battle for Atlas expansion coming October 16th this year. And with that Switch port is coming an exclusive character, which is Star Fox from Nintendo, which is kind of cool. And so they had like an R-Wing from Star Fox as kind of a prototype, and this is what it's going to look like and that sort of thing. So that was kind of cool. Like I said, not really my thing, but it was kind of neat to see kind of that cross promotion between Ubisoft and Nintendo kind of going into other directions as well. And then there was Beyond Good and Evil 2. Jay, have you ever played the original game, Beyond Good and Evil?
No. It was there. It is one of the many games that I actually bought and did not play and ended up handing off to somebody else, like when I moved or something like that.
Gotcha.
It was kind of perpetually in my game queue, and something else would always like take my time. So I never really got into it. I am familiar with the game generally, but I for whatever reason I just never actually played it.
Yeah, I've never played the original. I don't know much about the story, but I gotta say the cinematic they released for the sequel, damn, it looked awesome. Like that was some really good shit right there. So I might get like the cliff notes on the first game. I usually don't go back and play games that are that old, but no, this looks pretty cool. I don't like I said, I don't know what it's about, but the cinematic was at least enough to kind of spark my interest. So this one has no release date, but they do hope to have a beta at the very least before late 2019. So this is still quite a ways off, over a year and a half just to get to a beta. So it's not going to be releasing anytime soon. But, the people that are working on it seem very excited, very energetic, and they're very, hyped to make this game. So, I hope it goes well for them, and I'll definitely be keeping an eye on it because it does look very interesting. I like kind of that grungy space setting, so it looks pretty nice. I think the last one that Ubisoft had, which was like their opening act, was Livvy was like driving back from somewhere, so I was just watching and kind of feeding to her what was going on, and I'm like, "There's a dancing panda and a marching band. I don't know what's going on, but I guess it's the Ubisoft release, and I guess this is the new version of Just Dance, a game that I zero interest in whatsoever because just think for 3 seconds about me dancing, and you'll know that's a bad idea." But the game is coming out on the 23rd of October this year, so that's kind of the last one that they had. And so I think the final one we had, and it's a really short one because they were pretty concentrated on what they were working on. Is of course Nintendo. They had several smaller games. They were kind of talking about some independent titles that they were publishing, but kind of the two major ones. Fortnite coming to Switch, we all kind of knew that was coming. And Fortnite was big at E3 altogether, just huge. Everything was Fortnite. But obviously, the big one that they focused on is Nintendo's kind of moneymaker, which is, of course, Super Smash Brothers. And this is the new title coming out for Switch, which is Super Smash Brothers Ultimate. I did not own a Wii U, so I never played the Wii U Smash Brothers. The last one I played was, I guess, the Wii one, which was pretty good. This one looked really exciting, though, because they're going to have every character that has ever been in a Smash Brothers game is going to be on the roster, which is a shitload if you add them all up. And then they're adding two new ones, which is Inkling from Splatoon and then Ridley from Metroid. And I know that Ridley has been requested since like GameCube. Like it's been a long time. So people are very excited for that one. And then Inkling, of course, because Splatoon is another huge title that Nintendo publishes. So that's no surprise. And we knew about that one a while ago because it was on kind of their teaser trailer for Smash Brothers. So that was definitely what they focused on. They went over a lot of details on how they were changing character abilities and that sort of thing. I'm not going to get into that because it's way too nitty gritty. But my brother was like freaking out watching this. He's like mashing the pre-order button trying to find it on Amazon. So I'll be playing that one when it comes out because I do love Smash Brothers. I just didn't have the console to play the last one, but I do have a Switch now. So looking forward to that one. And that's kind of what I had, guys. Is there any other stuff from E3 that we skipped over you wanted to cover? I know that you guys covered Anthem pretty in depth on the last episode of the podcast. So I didn't want to get into that too deep, but was there anything else?
I mean, from my standpoint, not really. I mean, like I said, we did touch on Anthem quite a bit. There was a fair amount of pretty good stuff that came out at E3. It was certainly not. It was not lackluster in terms of news by any stretch, but the underlying thing we kind of talked around. We didn't really discuss a whole lot tonight, or really even Sunday. I kind of really think that this is that first sort of hey, that the next gen is coming. Start getting ready for that. That was kind of one of the big sort of not really spoken, but definitely alluded to things that a lot of the game developers were talking about. And in fact, when they were showing off a lot of these games, you could kind of tell that it was there. They were, some of them were certainly built with an eye towards the next gen. Certainly. I think Anthem is probably one of those as well. I don't know if I mentioned that or not on Sunday. But I think that would be the one thing that I would say, like beyond all the kind of the mechanical gaming news, or like, hey, well, it looked like this, or when's it coming out. I really think this is kind of that first real, like, yeah, hey, it's the next one's coming. Clearly, though, Sony and Microsoft and Nintendo and anybody else out there in the game hardware market, nobody was saying a peep, obviously, but enough of the developers were like, yeah, well, like on the next set of consoles when we do this and that, there's a lot of, like I said, kind of nothing, certainly nothing intentional. It's just they were just fairly matter of factly answering. It's like, yeah, we're starting to work on things for the next gen. So I think that was one of my big takeaways from E3, aside from any individual game product, that yeah, it's about that time. We've had the current gen for a little while. These things catch up. Now, what was interesting is in some of the off the stage remarks, more than I think there were a couple. I'm trying to track this down now, right now, but anecdotally, there's been reporting that more than one developer said, yeah, the next generation of consoles isn't going to be like the current. It's not going to be what you think it's going to be. There's some allusions to it's a box that ties into the internet, and basically, you get everything streaming or whatnot. That it's almost more of a Steam box versus a traditional Xbox PlayStation. Now, that is wildly speculative and based on literally 2 or 3 articles and a couple of snippets that I've seen. So I'm kind of curious to see what that would look like, or what the next gen will look like. I mean, what they'll probably end up doing is just making something that's still, a box that fits under your TV that you do stuff with, is what I suspect. Because right now, I'm looking at my PS4 and it's basically an Apple TV. I mean, I run I don't even have cable in my house. I watch all my TV through my PlayStation. To be honest with you, I kind of think that that's probably more where they're going. And Sony definitely beat the market on all that. And if Microsoft and Sony kind of really go at it again, I'd really like to see if Nintendo would ever get back in the big hardware world. I mean, I think they're doing pretty good with Switch. That's definitely a market, a market space that nobody else has right now, or certainly nobody's competing with them on their level. So I think that's what I'm interested in, is what going forward, what are the speculative pieces for the next pieces of hardware that we're going to see? Like I said, aside from all the gaming stuff, which was quite interesting, and like I said, I'm pretty stoked for some of the games. But that was kind of the thing that I thought about most when I was watching or reading a lot of the E3 stuff.
Yeah, and I think that the fate of where consoles are going is going to be is probably a huge topic in of itself, and I think that you're kind of on point there with the shift to streaming games, and more importantly, structuring consoles to be basically pre-built PCs and kind of having that similar architecture. It's gotten to a point where that's kind of the most efficient way to do it, which is also great for developers because you can more readily transfer between them rather than having proprietary hardware. So we're getting there. I think next gen will be the step that gets us to it's basically a PC, or it'll be damn close, because even PS4 and Xbox One are getting pretty close to it. So like I said, that's a huge topic in of itself, but I think you're absolutely on point that they're already thinking ahead. Like Sony talking about how PS4 is approaching the end of its lifetime. They're looking to the next console. Developers are the same way. And Anthem is a good example. I know that when Destiny came out, Destiny was released on both PS3 and PS4. I think Anthem will probably follow in a similar line, where you'll see a PS4 and a PS5 version of it, and one for Xbox One and for the next one as well.
Well, Anthem comes out in about 8 months, I think. 8 or 9.
Ooh,
So,
they'll still probably make a high-res version.
Oh, they will.
Whenever.
So all the demos that people were playing were all running on PC.
Yeah, and that's what makes me think we're going to that architecture. Yeah, no, that's a good topic, and I think it's one we could probably dive into pretty deeply. I mean, there's a lot of. Inzel would probably get a kick out of this one because he's the big techie guy, talking about the architecture of console versus PC and the direction we've seen things going, and how developers are obviously, as you said, following suit and kind of thinking ahead. So That is largely what I got out of this E3, and the fact that they were so not focused on hardware leads me to believe that next E3, that's going to be the focus, is look at the new hardware we're working on, here's release titles, that sort of thing. We're going to be getting there pretty soon, I think about a year. All right, guys, well, I think that's pretty good for our E3 wrap-up. Went through it about as fast as we could. It still went pretty long, but, it's good stuff. So, thanks for joining us. Do you guys have any closing remarks before we kind of close this one up?
None from me.
Okay, sounds good then. So, thanks for joining us, guys. This will be going up probably sooner than our usual podcast, and we'll be continuing that, as our usual cadence. But I'll be getting this one up on YouTube pretty shortly here. So, thanks for joining, and we'll see you next time.